Hey guys, we are going to do one of our Meatgistics evening live streams. Just something we can all hang out together. All the Meatgistics guys. We're going to have a few drinks. Going to make some food. Just chat. I've got the chat big on the screen, or at least I will. So I'll be able to monitor what you guys are saying. Patrick's behind there, but he's about to take off. If I look choppy, we've changed the frame rate because we're using the older camera so that we can occasionally give close-ups on what we're doing on the stove. So what we're making today is my mom, which is my grandmother's red sauce. And we're gonna add some sausage to it. Some of that's gonna be pre-made sausage, and some of it we're gonna make loose sausage right here. I've also got some pasta, which I normally don't eat when I make this sauce. I honestly just make the sauce with the sausage, and I just eat that with Parmesan cheese. It's freaking delicious anyways, and you don't get all the carbs. So for drinks, we kind of tried to plan this out at least a little bit on Meatgistics. I said I was drinking whiskey. I don't know what you guys are all going to be drinking, but I've got the Old Forester 1920. And what's up? You turned it off? Yeah. Cool. I've got the Old Forester 1920. This is the very last of the good whiskeys that I won. So gonna drink that in celebration / mourning, but should be a good time. That is really good. Very, very good whiskey. All right. We've got social media posts that went out about this, some Meatgistics posts. So hopefully people keep filtering in. I'm putting the chat up now. Hopefully. Leaving me in charge of anything technology is not the best idea. ND Mike, cool. Yeah, I had Patrick back there. He just took off, but he monitored that for me before he left. So we're gonna use some garlic and some basil that I grew in my own garden. So I'm super excited about that. This is a sweet onion. Red sauces, people say all sorts of ridiculous things. Some people use red onions. I find that disgusting. Red onions are terrible. They're up there with mashed potatoes and most mushrooms. So sweet onion is always what I use in my red sauces. If you're making something different, if you're making a vodka sauce, I could see you going with a white onion, but for red sauce, I always go sweet onion. Two biggest secrets though are you've got to use a good extra virgin olive oil. It makes a huge difference. And we're gonna add a little bit more than most people would add anyways. And then the second one, I don't even know if I wanna say this in case Austin is out there, but a little bit of butter actually goes a long way when you're making any type of red sauce, but specifically this red sauce. It's something my grandmother always did. She didn't tell a lot of people about it. When my grandmother died, we divided up her recipe book. And that's when we found out that she had given different recipes to everybody so that nobody could make things quite as good as she did. Unbelievably devious, but also really, really smart. Just kept her the center of the family because everybody loved her cooking and everyone always wondered why they couldn't quite make it as good as she did. Now, the sausage I'm using is the Blue Ribbon Cutighi. Cutighi sauce, it's a Italian style sausage, got a little bit of sweetness to it. Very, very good when you're making any type of pasta sauce. So this has been pre-made. We've got it in natural casings. That was made out of straight pork butt, but I also have just some fresh ground pork here that I bought at the store, and I've weighed out some more of that Cutighi seasoning. So we're gonna mix that. A couple different ways you can deal with sausage when you're making a red sauce, or any sauce really. Some people will parboil the sausage first, and they're doing this to kind of leach out some of the fat. They don't want the fat in their sauce, but as evidenced by the fact that I'm adding butter directly to mine, I don't care about that, so I'm not doing it. But what people would normally do is they'd take a shallow pan like this, fill it up with water. Some people will put salt in it. Some people put a little bit of oil in that. I don't know why you would put oil in it. I'm sure there's a good reason. Par cook them till it's about 140 degrees. Leach some of the fat from it, then put it into their sauce. We're gonna add it directly like it is now. We'll cut it up into little chunks first. We're not gonna brown it. We're not gonna do anything like that at all. With our loose sausage, we are gonna brown it. What we're gonna do is saute the onions, then the garlic, then we'll brown that real quick, and then fast, we'll only let it go for a minute, 2 minutes at tops. We'll go ahead and add our crushed tomatoes, and then I've got 2 cans here of diced tomatoes with basil, garlic, and oregano. Just adds a little bit more flavor to it, but just regular, perfectly fine as well. You don't need to use these. I actually found one that had sriracha in it at one point, and I've spent the last like 6 months trying to figure out where I bought that can, because it was the best red sauce I've made in a long time. Had a nice little bite to it. I did not have the same success actually adding sriracha to my sauce. So if anyone knows where you can get diced tomatoes that have some sriracha in it, please let me know, because I will absolutely go buy more of that. So who do we have? ND Mike, as always. Butter pairs well with tomato. In what else? In what else does butter pair well with tomato? I don't eat fried green tomatoes, so maybe you'd fry it in butter, but I don't think so. God, that's good. This is a throwback to the drinking days of the live streams and the podcasts. We don't do that anymore for good reason, but on these late night live stream things or evening live streams, I think we're going to. The evening live streams, we're planning on doing them once a month. It'll be on the first or second Wednesday, whatever this Wednesday is, first Wednesday of every month. Just it's an easy day to do it. Coming right out of the podcast, so I'm already in like a media mode. The room's already ready for it, so it doesn't take a bunch to set up. We just had a really, really good podcast. Possibly one, well, definitely one of my favorites. We had Bill Bullman on, which is the perfect name for this gentleman. He is the head of RCAF. They are a ranchers and cattlemen's organization fighting back against the 4 big guys who are kind of destroying the beef industry in the United States. So a lot of really good information on there, and he was exactly what you would think, even to the cowboy hat. I mean, he was perfect representation of what you think of as, or at least what I think of as a rancher, and he's really, really good guy. So that will be out on Friday. And then we've got some requests that you guys follow up with. We'll put that in the comments on the Meatgistics stuff. Nothing big. Just we want you to contact your local representative and tell them to support what they're doing. Because without that, beef industry might be in some trouble. So, all right, we're gonna get going. Barbecue sloppy. I don't eat sloppy joes either. Tomato soup. Yep. Bisque. Oh God, I haven't made a bisque in forever. One of my favorite things to eat in my 20s was grilled cheese and like homemade tomato bisque. So the tomato bisque is just tomato soup with some cream in it. So good. Lobster bisque. Growing up in the Northeast, lobster bisque was everywhere. Freaking loved that stuff. But first thing we got to do, we're going to start chopping up some ingredients. So we've got 3.5, 4-ish cloves of garlic. Garlic we grew, so I'm not sure it's quite as strong as what we buy in the store. So I added a little bit more. This is basil that I picked off the plants we're growing. I did not know this, but basil apparently bruises really bad if you pick it too hard and then store it improperly like I did. So I put this just in a regular plastic bag and just on the drive over here. So I must have picked this too hard and then stored it in a plastic bag, and man, did that brown right up. So try not to do that. We're gonna go ahead and just chop these up. Obviously, I'm using my awesome Meatgistics username knife, which I'm pretty sure at least ND has. Knocking things over. We're gonna use just all regular spices. Excalibur does make this. It's a spaghetti sauce seasoning. It's got salt, pepper, paprika, and some sugar in it. Sugar is a yes or no, depending on the type of sauce I want to make. When I was growing up, I used to add carrots instead of any sugar. Then I started adding sugar directly to my sauce for a while and kind of fell off that because sugar is just freaking terrible for me. Now I'm chopping this up pretty fine because we're going to saute it. But because I'm using crushed tomatoes instead of what I normally get, which is a big thing of whole tomatoes, what I normally do, and I wasn't paying attention at the store, is I get the whole tomatoes, and then I use this, which is just a little handheld blender, put it in my sauce, and blend everything up. That helps for a few reasons. One, probably a little bit less processed on what's coming out of the can. Two, you don't necessarily have to be quite as accurate with chopping everything up because it's going to get blended in that. Now, the finer you get your onions, specifically garlic too, the better it's going to saute, the faster it's going to saute. So it does matter a little bit. When I'm making this stuff, I'm almost always only cooking for myself. My wife eats completely different things unless we're eating steak. So I'm really just cooking for myself, so I don't care as much. Obviously, I want to eat good food, but I mean, I like everything. I'm a pretty easy person to please, which always, whenever we're trying something new around here, I always have somebody else try it because I'm always like, oh no, that's great. I love that. So, what's up, Tex? Tex, Patrick, as he was leaving, said this was a very expensive and difficult way for you and I to have a long distance dinner date. So I found that funny. See, Carl with a C, no, I'm the opposite of a picky eater. Very few things I don't like. I don't like most types of mushrooms, though I am changing on that. What I've been doing recently is drying mushrooms, crushing them up and adding them to things, because I'm finding I actually do like the flavor of the mushroom. It's the texture that I don't like. I despise mashed potatoes because they taste like cheap vodka. Always have tasted bad to me. I've always hated them. And there's really only a couple other things I dislike. In general, I'm a fairly easy person to please when we're talking about food. So just chopping up some basil. And again, this is fresh basil right from my garden. Something keeps getting into our garden, eating our strawberries. Not touching anything else, just eating our strawberries. It's making us mad. We had like 4 good strawberries going. Only got to taste one of them because something ate the other ones. I'm assuming it's a rabbit, but I don't know how it's getting in there. It's annoying. Maybe a bird? I don't know if a bird would eat a strawberry. Another funny thing that happened today, at least I found it funny, because I was doing this and we're going to be here fairly late, I took an extra long lunch, took my dogs for a long walk, sweaty mess. So I took a shower, and I listen to podcasts when I'm in the shower. All of a sudden my podcast stopped playing. So I hit the button to make it start playing again, and I can tell there's somebody on the other line, and I hear, hello? And it was one of our customer service reps calling me as I'm in the shower. I realized she can hear the water running, so she knows there's somebody there. So I said her name, and I was like, is this you? And she's like, yeah, where are you? I'm like, I just started laughing. I'm like, I'm in the shower, and whatever, had a good laugh over it. I'm sure most people know this, but the easiest way to cut up an onion, especially when you only need half, like I need here, is score it in one direction all the way through. Come back, score it the other direction so it almost looks like a blooming onion. Find your center cut, put it all the way down. Now you've got scored both ways, so all you got to do, cut down, and you've got nice small little chunks without having to do a ton of chopping. The chopping obviously is what gets the liquid from the onion up in the air and gives you more problems with crying, which I'm very prone to, so I'm trying to stay back a little bit. Go through, take out these larger chunks because they will saute at different rates depending on the size of it. We're gonna turn on, is that the big one? Yeah. We're gonna turn on our pan. We're gonna let that get a little hot before we add our olive oil. We're initially gonna add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Then we're gonna add our onion. Then we're gonna add our garlic. And then we're gonna add our pork. And like I said, with the pork, this is going to be seasoned with the Cutie seasoning. It's Blue Ribbon Cutie seasoning, Cutie Guy, however you really say it. I've already measured out enough to season a pound of meat. So we're just gonna quickly move that in there. With this sausage, we're not gonna pre-brown it. We're not gonna get any type of caramelization or Maillard reaction. But with this, we are going to get just a little bit because loose, totally not, no texture to loose sausage in a red sauce tastes or feels a little bit weird to me. So we're gonna add it at the end of our saute just before we put in our tomatoes. Wash that real quick. And as I am the last person here today, it would be a really bad thing if we set off the fire alarm. So let's get our 3 tablespoons of this in here because you can see the smoke coming off it. When we're using any type of stainless steel pan, always recommend you get the pan or pot really nice and hot first and then add the oil. That's how you can get a mostly non-stick surface from stainless steel or steel. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be better. When we're sauteing things, we want to saute onion first. Takes a little bit longer than any garlic. So we're just going to cut off or put in our onion. Let that go for just a little bit. We're going to watch it. I'll turn this so we can all see. We're going to watch it just before it gets translucent. Then we're going to add our garlic. We don't want the garlic to do much more than a light brown color. You got to saute the garlic so that it infuses with the oil and really does a good job of kind of spreading its taste all the way around. But burnt garlic in olive oil tastes not good. So you just got to be really careful with that. Keep a close eye on it. And as that's all going on, I'm going to open up these. Hopefully that switched. Yeah, that switched. I can see just the bottom of it below the chat. I see somebody in chat calling it gravy. I'm assuming you're either from a real Italian family or you're from New Jersey. Those are the only 2 places I know of, at least in my experience, where red sauce is called gravy. Okay. So not quite translucent, but maybe just starting to get. And again, because we got the pan screaming hot before we added any of the olive oil, we've got nothing sticking at all to the bottom of this pan. It's almost like using a stickless, that's not a real word, a non-stick pan. There you go. So starting to get some translucence. we'll go ahead and add the garlic and the last little bit of onion that didn't quite make it in there when I scraped this cutting board. And now we've got to keep a real close eye on it, because as soon as that garlic starts to brown at all, we've got to get it either off the heat, which we're not going to be able to do fast enough because it's in a pan that's going to pop, that's going to remain hot, or add something to lower the heat, which is going to be our tomatoes. A little bit harder because I added some, unfortunately, some of the basil in there. So kind of dark as we're going. Add some of this. The sausage, the loose sausage also should help cut the heat a little bit, so that should help. Hopefully you guys all have drinks as well. That was part of what appealed to me of doing this, starting this back up again as a monthly thing, was an opportunity to get to hang out with you guys, have a few drinks, cook something, and just be able to have a little bit of a discussion. We'll get more to the talking phase, hopefully, once I don't have to pay so much attention to this sauce, which is coming up fairly soon. A nice thing about making a red sauce is you can make a decent amount of food in a limited amount of time, and it's not hard, and it doesn't take a lot of attention. Your first 20 minutes is really where you're doing the majority of the work, and after that, we're basically just letting it cook. I did buy a whole box of pasta that I'm going to cook, then I'm going to add it to this, and I figure I'll treat at least customer service and shipping to some pasta tomorrow if they want it. All right, so everything's starting to brown up. Got just a couple of pieces that are remaining pink, but I don't want to risk overcooking the garlic, so I'm going to add our tomato sauce. And again, I've got diced tomatoes with the basil, garlic, and oregano in it. I'm also going to be adding some salt directly to it and just a little bit of that Excalibur spaghetti seasoning. But got that mixed in there. For salt, some of you will probably throw up the amount of salt I'm about to add and how I measure it, because it is not in any way, shape, or form controlled or accurate. What I'm going to do, this is kosher salt. I'm going to fill my palm with it. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can see that. Then I'm going to throw most of it in there, mix it around a little bit. Throw just a little bit more of that in there. Have a coating left on my hand that I'm just going to toss. Mix it all in. Throw in my basil. My knife has already been in the sink. I don't want to use that again. So I'll dirty up another knife. Get my basil in there. Mix that in. Now, if I was doing this at home and I had black peppercorns, I would have used my pestle, created a, crushed that up a little bit. But instead, I'm going to use the spaghetti sauce seasoning from Excalibur that's got a decent amount of black pepper in it. I'm just going to shake in a decent amount, not a ton, probably a total of 2 teaspoons, maybe a little bit more than that. And now we want to bring that up basically to a boil. We want to let it go until it's bubbling. Then we're going to want to let it do that for about a minute. I'm going to come back to the wide shot. After that's gotten to the boiling phase, I'm going to cut up the sausage, put that in there, and add some butter to it. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of butter, depending on the size of the batch I'm making. This is a little bit less than I would normally make, so I'll probably be somewhere in between 1 and 2 tablespoons on it. I added tomato sauce. I added peeled tomatoes and diced tomatoes. There is tomato sauce in this kitchen, but didn't go into that pan or pot. I don't like fennel. Not a fan of fennel well, I can take fennel in an Italian sausage, but I don't like an Italian sausage as much in a red sauce as I like this Cutie. Now, Cutie has spices, salt, spices, including fennel, so it's got a little bit, garlic, paprika, and natural spice extras of paprika. For those of you who didn't see it, it's a very red seasoning. So that's what all the paprika is. It's got some fennel in it, but not as much as like your regular Italian sausage. I don't know. Some people like fennel, some people don't. It's not quite as bad as cilantro, but some people like it. I'm not an enormous fan. Andy Mike says he's put of beer. I assume he means out, but yep, he corrected himself right after that. So, I was saying it probably before any of Ryan, Neil, or any of you guys joined, but this represents the very last of the good whiskey that I won at the Pass It On Outdoor Mentors event. So it's back to either not drinking whiskey, drinking cheap whiskey, which I'm not going to do, or buying good, expensive whiskey, which is probably what will end up happening. I really did not like whiskey before I won that, and now I'm quite the fan. But I am sweating, so I'm going to turn the air on. So hopefully this noise doesn't bother you guys. Let me know if it does. Not that that's surprising at all. I sweat at the drop of a hat. I've also made red sauces recently with the jalapeno popper sausage, and it's really good. Believe it or not, it's really good. The Bavarian Oktoberfest was also absolutely delicious in a red sauce. Maybe my favorite, or at least up there for sausages to use in a red sauce. But get a clean knife to cut that butter. Ugh. All right, so I'm drinking this. What is everybody else eating or drinking? It's unfair to make me drink alone, and I'm sure you guys wouldn't. Can barely hear the AC. Awesome. So try Four Roses single barrel. The name of that and the reference makes me think that that's an old friend from Dallas. Jeff, is that Jeff Young? Be interested to see if that is you. Maker's Mark is nice. No, Ryan. I know what you're doing there. You're trying to make me sweat even more. So I'm not paying any attention to what you're saying there. Chardonnay. I like a white wine every once in a while. I'm not a huge red wine fan. Just trying to make sure that nothing burns to the bottom of the pan. So keeping an eye on that. Oh, all right. So Jeff, I had a good friend in Dallas whose name was Jeff Young. We went to the opening night of Coyote Ugly in Dallas, and there is a Four Roses story to that, which I will not tell here. Yeah, my lack of fennel is just a personal preference. That's what I always try to get across to people, is that taste is so subjective that when people ask me questions like what's the best anything, there's no good answer to that. I can just give you what I like, because everybody prefers something different. Now, there are certain things that are just objectively better than others, like the Walton's Ultimate Steak and Roast Rub. I will hear no arguments on this. That is the best steak seasoning and the only thing that should be put on a steak. Dos Primos with sangria, nice. Yep, Hawkeye, it'll be available on our, yes, it'll be available on our YouTube page, though I don't know what we do with them. We have a live stream playlist. Since we're going to do this monthly, we'll create a new playlist that is the Meatgistics evening live streams. You'll also be able to go back to meatgistics.waltons.com. If you go to Meatgistics, at the top there'll be a little live thing until we do the next one. If you just hit that, it'll pop up and you can play it then. Listen, I'm feeling very attacked by the number of times I'm seeing fennel in there. So obviously you guys don't care, but I'm gonna get a towel to start wiping the sweat off here. Ooh. All right, so we've got a decent boil going on this. We are gonna go ahead and turn it down to about a third of the temperature that it was before. We're gonna add our butter and we're gonna add this sausage. We're then gonna let it cook for about 30 minutes. After that 30 minutes, because these diced tomatoes were a little bit bigger than I was expecting them to be, we are gonna use our little handheld blender. To do that, we're gonna have to pull this sausage out first and any of the bigger pieces of the sausage, the loose sausage we put in there. Smaller pieces don't matter, that thing will chew right through them, but I don't wanna do the bigger ones. So, there was a piece of butter. Somebody tell me, did I already put the butter in there? Where did that go? I cut off a chunk of butter and now cannot find it. I'm fairly sure I did put it in there. It's in there already. A half a glass of whiskey, and I already can't remember if I'm adding ingredients or not. Hence why we stopped drinking during podcasts and live streams. The number of times we would get done with a live stream and I wouldn't be 100% sure what happened was problematic, to say the least. But for anyone who joined us in the last 10 minutes or so, we had a podcast guest today from RCAF. They are a Ranchers and Cattlemen's Association organization that is trying, at least, to fight back against the big four in the beef industry and what's going on with that. So hopefully you'll learn a little bit listening to this podcast that'll be released on Wednesday, and take action on the few things we ask you. Basically just calling your representative, telling them what we want them to do. You have a good wife, Mike? Mike, I'm going to cook some elk steaks. Awesome. I'm very hopeful that 2023, I'll be able to do my first elk hunt in Colorado. I'm in conversation with somebody who has offered to take me on a fairly, well, I'm lucky to get the opportunity to do it, is all I'll say if it happens. And so, yeah, I'm hopeful I'll have elk next year. So. Oh, ND Mike meant he was out of beer, not just like out of what was in his area. Excellent. All right. We're down to a third temperature of what was boiling. It is still bubbling pretty good though. So I'm going to turn it down just a little bit more. Stir it, because we absolutely want to avoid anything burning to the bottom of that pan. But I'm going to get a chair. And like I said, there's not a ton to do when we're making a red sauce. The first half hour, 20 minutes, is fairly labor intensive, but after that, it's mostly a waiting game and just knowing enough to pay attention to make sure that you're not going to let anything burn. So for those of you who don't know, Tex and I have been kind of going back and forth on who can cook the best steak. We were planning on doing a steak cooking competition, but his rule, or his stipulation, was that we not use Ultimate Steak and Roast Rub, which is ridiculous, because I'm not cooking a steak with anything else. That is the only thing I want to put on my steak. Yeah, but I don't want elk meat. I want to go kill an elk. Like, I want that to be my elk. So, I don't know if anybody saw, but the dog that saved its owner from the mountain lion attack in Northern California died. So another reason why eating mountain lion is a good thing. For those of you who don't know, mountain lion is probably the best wild game I've had. It tastes a lot like pork somehow, and I can't figure it out. At least it's more tender. Our best guess at this point is the fact that when they're not sprinting around trying to eat things, they're very lazy. They just lay around, lounge, do nothing. So maybe that accounts for some of the tenderness, but I could cook a pork loin and some mountain lion loin right next to each other, and I would bet that most people would have any chance of telling the difference between the two. And if they did, they might prefer the mountain lion because it is more tender. Yeah. Listen, my blue hat faded so bad because of how much I sweat that my blue hat with Jonathan on the side is unwearable. It's like whitish yellow in this entire area, and then it's a different shade of blue up top. So the orange hat doesn't fade as much, but the blue hat is still better. Just is. Orange hat also does fit just a little bit better. Not much you can do about that. Nope. We're going to turn that heat up just a little bit. It's just barely simmering, and we want it to keep a fairly good fairly good simmer on. Sorry, that obviously sitting down on my transmitter is not the best idea. We wanted to keep a fairly good simmer on. Want to stir it a decent amount, but not over stir it. We want to make sure that we're not cooking all the moisture to the top of our sauce. We want to keep it spread throughout, but if we stir it constantly, it's not going to heat properly. So we need to find the good balance of leaving it alone and stirring it. Try moving some of this around so I don't sit on it like that again. Ooh. So that is the end of the Old Forester. Oh God. It is just the fact that I can't talk. It's not that I've had a glass and a half of whiskey. But we were talking earlier about not what I'm gonna do, I guess, about the fact that I'm out of good whiskey now. I've got good tequila at home, I've got good vodka at home, but I have no more good whiskey. And I think I wanna go out and splurge just a little bit on some good whiskey. Obviously, I'm not going like Poppy Van Winkle, I'm not spending multiple hundreds of dollars. Left to my own devices, I'd go back to the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, because that was smooth, delicious. I mean, basically the perfect whiskey in my mind. Is there anything else in that price range, the $100-ish, maybe a little bit below that, if possible, that people would recommend? Because I find myself liking whiskey more and more, surprisingly. Because 2 years ago, if you'd asked me, in fact, you can go back and watch the Willet Barbecue, was it called Willet Barbecue Whiskey? Whatever the Willet Barbecue was, we tried smoking whiskey and hated it, and at that point admitted I don't like whiskey. I also do have something to show you. A couple things arrived today for Willet Barbecue that are ridiculous. So we did what our next barbecue things is gonna be. So we've got shark, whatever, just regular shark steaks. Kind of looks like tuna steaks that are white. I'll save that one. They did not have any lionfish, so I told them they could substitute parrotfish for that. But I assumed I was gonna get like parrotfish fillets or something. No, they sent me like just whole parrotfish. Like no, the skin's on, just regular old parrotfish. So this may turn into a more of John learns how to cook entire fish than a Willet Barbecue. Then I've got our Western Diamondback rattlesnake, which again I thought would be more in like the meat form, but you can see all the bones all throughout that, so we're gonna have to deal with that. Then we've got eel, and it goes around at least once, I think once and a half in there. I'll re-vacuum pack this one so you can't see too closely in there. But the most ridiculous one, beaver tail. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with this. This is just 3 beaver tails where you can literally see they just chopped it off. There's the center bone and sent me 3 beaver tails. I don't know what to do about that. So this is gonna be a experiment / experience for all of us together, because who knows what to do with a beaver tail. I mean, a parrotfish, I can figure this out. I've cooked whole fish before. A beaver tail? I don't know what to do with that. So if we do this and it's bad, it's probably not the beaver tail, it's probably my lack of ability to figure out what to do with the beaver tail. Ooh. All right, so we've got a good simmer going on. We'll just let that keep going. Yes, I work out quite a bit. Probably why I'm sweating so much today is way overdid it on the energy drinks throughout the day. Halfway through our podcast, I was like, I'm feeling a little bit tired. I knew I had one in there, so I drank another one. That was one too many for the day. So other than that, I took my dogs on like a hour-and-a-half walk today, and it was pretty humid out, so I was sweating like crazy. And once I start sweating, I never really recover. I just basically continue to sweat throughout the day. That's what happens when I'm fat. When I'm skinny, don't hardly sweat at all. But as soon as I put on that extra 15, 20 pounds, just leaches out of me. Wild turkey, rare breed. Don't think I've ever had it. Russell's Reserve, definitely never had it. Mitchers, okay, so those are in the 100-ish range, I hope. Black Velvet Reserve, I have had. Where did I have that? I'm fairly sure it was at a bar in West Virginia. That is very good, if that's what I'm thinking it is, and I'm pretty sure it is. Very, very good. Nice and smooth. That was even 7, 8 years ago, and even then I liked that, so it has to be good, because that was long before I liked whiskey at all. So. Oh, we need to get better air movement in this room. Tex has been up here. He will give me crap about it, but he knows that it gets hot up here, especially when we've got the oven or the stovetop going behind us. We close our vents off up here because it makes a whistling noise when we're recording, but then I always forget to open them back up and get some air moving through here. Ooh. Ooh. All right, I'm gonna tempt the sausage in there. As soon as that hits 160, I'll pull it, blend the rest of it, and then we will start. We're at 164, okay? So we're past that. So I'm gonna pull all the sausage out of it and then start cooking the pasta. And again, all I'm looking for here is the whole sausage and a few of the bigger pieces of the loose sausage that we made. Everything else, I want it to grind up nice and fine. We're not making a chunky sauce here. It smells really good. Makes me sort of regret me saying that I was gonna feed this to other Walton's employees. This feels like it should probably come home with me. But it won't. So for any of you who are watching, which I'm sure a bunch of you are Walton's customers, our support staff, which support is the wrong word, our customer service, our shipping, our purchasing, our everything are all filled with great people. You really only ever get a chance to meet Austin, myself, Brett, and a few other people, but everybody who works here is, for the most part, great people. And I've really enjoyed seeing Justin, our new social media guy. He's been doing a great job reactivating our social media. For a long time there, we did nothing on social media, to the point where If you sent us a message, we would respond automatically saying, this is unmonitored, contact us through this or that way. But he is reactivating things and doing a great job. So I've enjoyed watching that, and I've seen some of the interactions that a few of you have had back and forth with him, and I'm enjoying and appreciating that. So we're gonna blend all this up so it's mostly smooth. Oh, I missed a piece of sausage. I can feel it as I go around. There's a piece of sausage in there. That's just a little too big for this blender to catch. Now, depending on who is eating the sauce, I will sometimes add Parmesan cheese directly to it. I won't do this on that just to prevent my grandmother from coming back to the dead and trying to kill me. But we're gonna turn the heat up just a bit on that. We're gonna get some water boiling. And at the same time, this is done. That should be ready to serve. And we'll eat a little bit of that. And then I have a bunch of cleaning up to do because I stink at cleaning up as I go. Okay. I'm gonna move this to the smaller one. Turn this up as high as it'll go. Turn that fairly low. As soon as that starts boiling, just before it starts boiling, I'll add some salt to it. Salt lowers the boiling point of water. Salt raises the boiling point of water. Oh, God. Am I really not going to be able to remember this right now? Salt raises the boiling point of water. So that will let our water get hotter, because once water reaches 212 degrees or 214 degrees, one of the two, it changes to a vapor, and then we can't get any more heat out of it. By adding salt, we let our water get hotter, letting us cook our pasta quicker and better in general. When I was growing up, there was a big thing called the salt challenge, where you would pour salt on your arm and then put an ice cube on top of it. That makes the ice cube get ridiculously cold and burn your arm. So it's the type of idiot stuff we used to do. Thank you, Neil. I appreciate that. No, we've tried that. We've tried keeping it cool in here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 lights in here. When we use the oven or the stove, there's nothing we can do. It just gets hot. So, whatever. Sweating's not the worst thing in the world. But keep a somewhat eye on that. If anyone sees it boil over behind me, please let me know. My real concern at this point is whoever left last very well might have set the alarm, and there's no monitor in this room. So as soon as I leave this room, walk out into the hallway, I might have the alarm trip on me, because I didn't think to tell our retail store manager that I was doing this tonight. So hopefully he saw my car and realized it. Otherwise, cops are going to get called, and Brett's going to have, well, I mean, it won't be that hard a conversation, but he'll have to explain to the cops that I am supposed to be here. So, no, terrible. Block Ryan. That's a god-awful suggestion. He shouldn't even be talked about on any of our media. In fact, if you can retract comments, you should retract that comment. You know how I feel about that. Ridiculous. trying to sink the company. For anybody who did buy a Walton's 20 or 30 pound stuffer or a Walton's one-shot meat grinder, we have started sending out our monthly status updates on it. We are doing that because A, we want you guys to be aware of what is going on. We're required to do it. Unfortunately, they were initially designed or expected to come in at the end of August. We're now looking at sometime in September. So not a huge pushback, but a slight pushback. They didn't make one ship. We're hoping that they make the next. So, unfortunately, it's going to be just a little bit, couple weeks longer expected, or a couple weeks longer than expected delay or arrival, whatever. I really think that once people start playing around with that Walton's one-shot grinder, especially if you make a lot of snack sticks, we're going to sell out of those in no time. I worry slightly that we didn't order enough. It grinds over 7 times faster, 8 times faster than you could possibly do with a standard grinder. It really is amazing. And when I tell you that we did not want to buy those initially, I was not interested at all in the dual grind technology. Our thought on it was that if it worked and it was effective, commercial customers would be using it, and they're not. They sent us an initial, a different grinder body with a head that specifically matched with it. And we tried it, didn't love it, definitely didn't want to try to send or sell a second style grinder months, maybe 6 months after we started getting the original ones. So they sent us a dual grind head attachment, and it worked just beautifully, to the point where like I couldn't deny how well it worked. It worked insanely well. I grabbed some of our commercial salesmen, asked them to look at it, see if they were seeing something I didn't. They all thought it looked absolutely great. So I think we're going to sell a ton of those. Our electric stuffer, though, that thing is amazing. We should sell an absolute ton of those. We used to, a long time ago, have an electric stuffer that we eventually pulled from the market because it didn't do what we had hoped it would do. Initial testing, this was long before my time in the media department, initial testing just didn't catch some of the issues, or I don't know. But we eventually pulled it. We said, this isn't going to be good enough. We want our name to stand for quality, and that had too many problems. This thing, as most of you, if you're with us here tonight, I assume you know this. We've worked for 2 years on that thing, trying to make sure that there were no defects. I can stuff 19 millimeter snack sticks on that thing with 0.75 liters of water added to a 25 pound batch. And it'll come off the tube faster than I would recommend you run it without tripping the motor. In fact, I think one of our big problems with it is going to be people trying to run it too fast. So we have a video coming out on it in the next week, hopefully, that will show all of its capabilities, all of the things that it can do, and just being honest, like the things it can't do. We're not going to offer a 10 millimeter tube with that. 10 millimeter tube is what you want if you're doing 15 millimeter, 16, 17 millimeter snack stick casings. We're not going to offer the tube to work with this. It does come with a hand crank, and if you want to make 16, 15 even millimeter casings, you can use the hand crank with this because the gearbox works beautifully, really, really well. But for the motor, it's 19 or 21 millimeter casings, no smaller than that. but it works wonderfully with that. Where's my salt? So we've got almost a boil on the water. We're gonna add some salt. That boil is gonna go away for a minute or two. Yep, Neil's asking any update on the We the People t-shirts. They've been ordered. They are the incredibly soft material that I love on my Backcountry Hunters and Anglers shirt, which is my weekend shirt, wear it almost every Sunday. So we will have that. It will have the patriotic Meatgistics logo on the front, which I had to do a ridiculous amount of work for to get Austin to approve that. Not a ridiculous, a small amount. And then it will have our We the People on the back. So that those have been ordered. Hopefully we'll have them in the next couple of weeks. Fair point, or fair question. Ronald's asking which one do I like better, the 20 or 30 pound? They're the same. We've gone through five motors, four different body styles, including like where the outlet is on the canister. So the 20 and the 30 pound that we have right now are the exact same, except for up at the top of the gearbox, there's a little control board. Initially, we thought that control board, all it did, you'll see a hole on the arm. Try and move that for you. Hold on one second, I'll show you closer. I'm gonna put the pasta in. There we go. Ooh. Throw the pasta in the water. Okay. 5:30, that makes it easy. It's 6:30, but we're off by an hour. I'm gonna switch cameras and I'm gonna try and show you this. I really hope I can do it. All right. So at the top and bottom of this arm, there is a hole. You should hopefully just be able to see that. It might not be in focus, but it'll be just above that box there. There's a hole that goes from front to back on one side and from side to side on the other. There's a photo sensor right up near the top there that tells it when to stop with downward pressure or upward pressure, and it reverses it. We thought that was all that it was doing, but it turns out it's actually also feeding information back to the motor, telling it how many amps to provide. So the 30 pound right now has an upgraded board, which both the 20 and 30 pound models will go to you with. But right now, only my 30 pounder has that upgraded board. So I've been using the 30 pound almost, in fact, exclusively for the last, God, has it been 3 months? For the last 3 months, probably. And when I tell you I've done everything on that, from small snack sticks up to bratwurst with very limited to no water. And I have not tripped that motor in a long time. So we're good on those things. Once those hit market, I'm expecting we'll sell a bunch of them. It'll also have like a color range up by the dial. So it'll tell you like where you should have this depending on the diameter of the sausage you're making. That's not like a hard and fast. There's definitely going to be some trial and error on that. And one of my favorite things that I've figured out to do is what I'm calling bouncing it. Oh, shoot, I'll move it back to the, it did move it back to the other thing. Did it switch? Yeah, it did. One of my favorite things to do is bounce. So what that is as I'm stuffing the snack stick, as soon as I hear a change in tone in the motor, I will quickly up the speed and then back it down again. What that does is it gives it enough pressure to push whatever it's blocking it right through. And honestly, it works wonderfully. The only downside to that is that the foot pedal doesn't allow you to adjust for speed. So you really do need to use your hand when you're doing that. But if you're doing larger diameters like large bratwurst, if you're doing anything like summer sausage or filling meat chubs, no problem at all. You don't need that bounce. You can just put it as fast as you can handle it. So. Yeah, so Patrick said before he left tonight that he had a cut ready for me to review that just was ready aside from graphics. So hopefully I'll look at that as soon as we're done here, and then that should be out in the next day or two. What is going on there? Oh, it is still showing the other thing. I'll switch that back. Apparently I'm far, far behind you guys. I apologize for how long that was on that. When I looked, it was showing that it was still on the front, so I thought I had gone up there and switched it back. So you're gonna look at a very boring thing for a really long time, and I'm sorry about that. Hence why one person shouldn't be doing this. I think in the future we'll have either Patrick or Justin stay late when we do these. So I'm turning my sauce off. Gonna let that cool for a little bit. The pasta should be ready in about another 5 minutes. We'll drain that, add that directly to the pot, let it soak up some of that sauce for a little bit. And then I'm gonna eat that, I guess, for dinner tonight. Am I gonna put the recipe for this on Meatgistics? I swear I thought we already had a red sauce recipe on Meatgistics. I thought we did at least. Maybe not. So there's a bunch of things on Meatgistics that we're gonna be kind of redoing. And not necessarily redoing in a front-facing way, but a redoing in SEO way. And one of those will be nutritional information. So we should start, I'm hoping that we can start giving, oh, whoops, no, get off that. I'm hoping that we can start giving information on calories, fat, protein, and carbohydrates per recipe. Pretty sure I can do that. No, I guess we never did. I did a video a long time ago on me making a pasta sauce. There's a spicy red vodka sauce, but that's not what I thought I did. Okay, yeah, 100%. We'll put at least a recipe, if not a video, maybe a link to this live stream in the recipe section of Meatgistics. Ooh. So you can kind of feel it for the most part, even through the handle of this. These are not done. I like my pasta a little bit al dente, but that's still pretty hard. I want it definitely softer than that. Why do you want to spoil it for us? Spoil what? The video? Yeah, so I'm a huge proponent of the 11-pound sausage stuffer, just my opinion, but I mean, I make a lot of 25-ish pounds batch, or 25-ish pound batches. And even with that, I would still rather somebody buy our 11-pound stuffer than our 26-pound stuffer. Sounds ridiculous because obviously we charge more money for the 26-pounder. The reason is the piston, which is what you use to push down through that canister, is narrower on the 11-pounder, which means it requires less effort. It's easier to push down through. Yes, you're gonna have to back everything out and reload it, but I still think that's easier than having to do it twice, or than having to do it with the larger piston. So doing it twice is easier than doing it with the larger piston. And I found that by trial and error. If you look way back, and I don't even know what video it is, and I should find out, because it was the first video I was ever involved in on any of the Walton's YouTube stuff. And it was literally me walking by and Austin saying, come here, crank this, like turn this. So I was doing the cranking as he was holding the base down and holding the sausage on. And it was so hard. The next time I did it, I did with the 11-pound. I'm like, oh my God, this is so much easier. So yes, you have to stuff it all the way down. We have a 2-speed system on all of our stuffers, both electric and manual. It takes 3 seconds maybe to get it from bottom all the way up, back up to top. It's a lot easier to use the 11-pound stuffer than it is the 26-pound stuffer, or 33. So it's the 7 and 11 are the same diameter piston, and the 26 and 33 are the same size. It's just the difference in height. The width or diameter of the stuffer piston does matter more than the height. The height also does matter. So 7-pound is slightly easier to crank than the 11-pound. 26 is slightly easier to crank than the 33-pound, but it's not that big a difference. Like that is, you're splitting hairs almost with that. So. Ugh. Oop. Yeah, that hurt. I'm not gonna lie. Another minute or so and we're good on that. Ooh. Which works just about perfectly. Here is the last little bit of I mean, at least with the whiskey I was drinking a few years ago, you would have seen a visible flinch from taking that big a drink of whiskey. But man, am I changing my mind on whiskey. Very, very smooth. I mean, you get the burn for sure. There's a little bit of heat that comes down with it, but it's not bad by any means. Turn that off, let it go. As soon as we stop seeing a boil, we'll go ahead and drain all the water, add it to the pot, and then we're good to eat. All I saw as soon as I looked over there is I think you might be spoiled. My wife and I say that to each other all the time, so I thought she had entered the chat. And please, oh God, don't ever let her watch these live streams and podcasts we do, because I admit all sorts of stuff that I don't tell her about. In fact, there was a point where my dogs were really, really bad with their, well, one of the dogs was really bad with his anxiety. So I was leaving live streams on when I left the house. And for whatever reason, she got home before me one day. And I had said something about the amount of money that I spend on trying to win guns. And she's like, oh, how bad is that? I was like, oh, good Lord, no. You don't want to know. Just pretend you didn't hear that, because our marriage will be much happier for not knowing that. But you have to have some secrets. Ugh. So we'll let that sit for a minute or so. We're gonna let the pasta suck up some of the sauce. In general, I would recommend you do that. If you're feeding a huge amount of people, then I would imagine a better idea would be to put pasta in a dish and then put sauce on top of it, because obviously you want the sauce to go as far as possible. But if you're just doing it for taste, then putting pasta back into the sauce, even though the pasta is basically fully cooked at that point, even though I do like it a little al dente, which means undercooked or like hard, it is still ready to absorb more. So it's going to absorb some of that flavor, some of that sauce. So if you were to add something that had been fully cooked, not al dente at all, to a sauce, and then you add something that's just still a little al dente, at the end of them, the one that had a little al dente would have less free like liquid in it, because it's going to suck up a little bit more of that sauce. Will the 11 do 15 collagen casing? So I'm assuming that's 15 millimeter. Yeah. So Hawkeye, we sell a 10 millimeter tube that a 15 millimeter casing will slip over. It's going to require either you add more water to it or you're ready to crank, because that's a very, very small point that you're trying to push all that meat through. The more water that is mixed in with that meat, the easier it's going to be to flow through that hole. What I would recommend you want to do with that is clamp that down to the table. Even, do I not have any in here? We sell suction cup feet for the 11, or actually for all of our manual stuffers. I would still probably recommend you clamp that down with a wood clamp or a C-clamp down to some sort of table, because it's going to require a decent amount of force to push that through a 10 millimeter tube. But yeah, absolutely, it will do it without a question. We've done it plenty of times. I don't love small millimeter snack sticks. Like, I like the 19 millimeter. For a while there, I was even liking 21 millimeter more. The reason I kind of went back to 19 millimeter from 21 millimeter was because the cooking time, I wanted it to cook quicker, so I liked that. But I don't mind a chunky snack stick at all. Offline from everything, not involved with Waltons at all, but I got into an argument with somebody recently. They wanted to say that I think they were saying a 22 or 23 millimeter snack stick sheep casing was perfectly fine for snack stick. I'm like, no, that's ridiculous. That's A, too big, and B, the knack on a sheep casing for a snack stick is too much. Like, it has to be collagen, for me at least, to consider it a snack stick. It has to be collagen or it has to be co-extrusion. So co-extrusion is where it comes out of a stuffer And as it's coming out, a liquid is poured over what is the meat as it's coming out, and it hardens into like a collagen casing that you would be used to. But I can't eat a sheep casing snack stick. I've tried them before, I do not like them. No matter what you do to it, no matter how you smoke it, no matter what the thermal processing is, I'm just not a fan. Ooh. All right, I'm gonna eat this. Oh, thank God. I thought I had broken the last of our bowls for a second there. I think it was the last time we did one of these live processing streams. It was deer something or other, is when I broke 2 of our bowls. I put them on top of our mixer that was hooked up to our grinder. Obviously, I just bought this. Haven't even taken the seal off. And I broke 2 of them. So for a second there, I didn't think we had a bowl left. Oh, thank God. 1 clean fork left. All right, so the last, really not that bad, hour and something has been about making this. We've got pasta, we've got a red sauce. Get some pasta, get some sausage. I mean, you can't beat that by a lot. Granted, my job is, in some way at least, food. It's also media, it's also like search engine optimization, all of that, advertising. But in some way, my job is still mostly food. And my good Lord, is that good. The sausage tastes delicious. That is I'm tasting both the Italian cutighi and, no, they're both Italian cutighi. So I'm tasting Italian cutighi. We've got a sauce we just made right there. We've got delicious pasta, perfect seasoning. Especially when we add the fact that both the garlic and the basil were from my garden. I like it even more. So, bowl right in front. I assume that's what you want. So, ND Mike, I see that my wife likes guns too. For anyone who's not a big Meatgistics user who just happened to find this thing, I was not a big gun guy 3 or 4 years ago, have become much more of a gun person. This past weekend, my wife came up, sat next to me on the couch. She's like, oh, what was that pistol, that our friend had that we shot that I liked? I was like, well, it was a 380. She's like, oh, well, I think maybe I want one. I immediately ordered her one, cried tears of pure joy and like pride. Cannot overstate how happy I am that all of my Second Amendment propaganda has finally rubbed off on her. Because when we moved down here 9 years ago, I didn't own any guns. We actually probably had a negative opinion of guns, but sorry, I rambled on that. But we're all good. That is absolutely delicious. Highly recommend you do it. Jethro Bowl, don't know what that is, but we'll look at it later. Thanks, guys. If you want to do more of these, head on over to Meatgistics. We're gonna do monthly what we should cook, what we should drink type posts. Just want to see what everybody wants to do. We will continue doing these as long as people interact and want to do them. So, see you. Oh, God, that tastes good. Ooh. Oh God, I hope that's not what I sounded like the whole time when I was eating.